So in this video series, you've seen a lot of examples of how we can write sophisticated applications that run on the Senza platform by writing JavaScript code. For this video, we're going to mix up the formula a little bit, and we're going to try to do something that looks retro, really, totally backwards, like something from the 80s or 90s. And we're going to do it without writing any code because I'm feeling really lazy today. So we're going to use vibe coding and ChatGPT. So I was inspired by looking at some of the program guides. Maybe this is from the 90s or 2010s, but let's go older than that. Let's make one that's really vintage and looks like this. You've all used them, the most simple kind that there is. So what we're going to do is we're going to give ChatGPT a prompt and see what it does with that. So I'm just going to give it those two pictures and say, I'd like to create a website that implements a classic TV program guide grid. It should use a fixed resolution of 1920 by 1080. It should have a classic retro look like program guides in the 1990s. The grid should have rows of channels with a horizontal time axis. For the demo, you can make up some generic channels and show names. Some shows will be 30 minutes, while others will be 60 minutes. It should be possible to use the arrow keys to scroll up and down through the channels and left and right through time, moving the selection between shows. Pressing the enter key should call a function called play, which can be a stub. So that took a few seconds, and then, not to be surprised, it came up with a great app. It was kind of like what I had in mind, but not quite. Don't worry, we'll get to the live preview part in a bit. So it's not just about giving it one prompt. ChatGPT is really about the chat functionality. So there is a bit of back and forth here. I said, that's a good start. Can you style it to look like the second image above? And so it mixed up the styling. It read the style information from the picture, like the dark blue theme, the borders and shadows, the fonts and stuff. And I love this little emoji right here. And it figured out all the arrow keys, no problem. I had a little bit of more input about how the table header rows should look and just sort of the general layout so it would present well on a full HD screen on Senza. So it went and updated the layout like I asked, and the guide grid and all of that. So this is a bit how it was looking right there. So there were a few weird things with the labels, and I went back and forth with that. Kind of like a spreadsheet, I want the to use a table where the headers at the top and on the left are fixed as you scroll around. So it made the headers and columns sticky. And I got it to go and use a different font. It was using some generic names, so I had it look up some shows from the 90s, and it picked some of these. I think I watched all of these when I was young, so that's pretty cool. I like the selection of shows. And it had initially picked keys like page up and page down. Now, those don't map to our remote control, so I made sure that we updated the remote control key bindings like this. Integrated all of that together. There were a few layout glitches, and we had a little bit of a back and forth on that. Now we're getting into the small details, like some shows with long titles, like America's Funniest Home Videos. Used to love watching that. Wasn't displaying correctly, so it fixed that. Ultimately, the layout was still a little wonky because it was using a lot of divs, which I know is kind of the modern way of doing development. I'm kind of old school and very comfortable using table tags in HTML. So I said, hey, can you refactor it? And it went and refactored it, and the result was much better. It fixed all those layout issues. Then it was just a matter of getting into some of the small details, and there was a little bit of back and forth about some some of the CSS, and so we got into like a little bit of the details. I tried doing some of the CSS myself just to do some small tweaking, and so I sent it back, and it started incorporating that into its design. Again, really small things like at the pixel level, cleaning up the CSS. And just going to scroll through real fast. And we'll get to the code in a second, but ultimately it's not the code that we care about. All right, so we were getting into the weeds, and there were a few issues, but now it's all fixed. So if I click on Open Canvas, this is the fun part. We can have the chat on one side and see the code over here. So it's got the CSS, and then a small bit of HTML, nothing special. And then you can see it's created a couple of arrays for the times, the time of day, some channel names, and then some sample TV show titles. I couldn't have come up with a better list myself. And then this is the code for building up the grid and rendering the guide. And then, of course, there's a function to move the selection and an event listener for the keys that takes care of all the scrolling. This is the first app in our series where I'm just going to scroll through the code, but I kind of don't care because it's ChatGPT that's writing it, not us. So the nice thing is I can just click on preview, and then, well, it found a bug in its own code. So we're going to have it fix that bug, see if it can go and do that. And this is where it gets real. Let's see if it can fix that bug. Okay, looks like it fixed the bug. So that's good. Let's go try that again then and do the preview, and now it works. So that's a good example of, I didn't even write that bug. I don't even know what the bug was, but it went and fixed it. So that's great. If I make this a little smaller, you can see that I can try this directly in the ChatGPT interface, and it works great, just as I would expect it to. And then we can try the same thing in the Senza console, and I think you won't be surprised to see that it works pretty much as you would expect it to. So it looks great. The real thing to keep in mind here is I didn't write any code to make this work. It literally just works like that. So I can scroll around like this. I can scroll up and down. So pretty fun. That's about it. So hope you enjoyed watching. Just an example of some fun you can have with vibe coding and ChatGPT.